Hi, my name is James, and this is Land Course U.S. History. Today, we'll be discussing the Cold War. So first, to understand the Cold War, we need to understand what led up to it. Let's go to the thought bubble. Following Nazi Germany's surrender in 1945, the U.S. and Great Britain and the Soviet Union experienced tensions. This is due to their differing political opinions, with Great Britain and the U.S. opting for democracy, and the Soviet Union opting for more of a communist approach. The Soviet Union began establishing many different communist governments all across Eastern European countries. Of course, US and Great Britain did not like this very much. As a result of these rising tensions, the US and the Soviet Union began fighting a war. This war, however, was not like the wars that we know. They were never in direct combat, but they aided other countries to fight each other, known as proxy wars. Ah, Jackie, sign the mystery document. All right, where is it? You don't have it today? Ah, it's on my phone. Okay, I see how it is. The rules of this are simple. I read the mystery document. I guess who wrote the mystery document. I get it right. I don't get shocked by the shock pen. I get it wrong. I get shocked by the shock pen. Let's see. It is logical that the United States should do whatever it is able to do to assist in the return of normal economic health in the world, without which there can be no political stability and no assured peace. Our policy is directed not against any country or doctrine, but against hunger, poverty, desperation, and chaos. Its purpose should be the revival of a working economy in the world so as to permit the emergence of political and social conditions in which free institutions can exist. Well, that's pretty easy. It's talking about bringing back economic wealth or economic health to European countries and giving them freedom to choose their government, which means that this is obviously George Marshall's speech on the Marshall Plan. Got it right? Sweet. So the US helped rebuild Western Europe by using the Marshall Plan, which focused on the economical rebuilding of Europe. However, they also used the Truman Doctrine, which states that whichever country is struggling against the firm, powerful hold of the Soviet Union will help you militarily. So the Truman Doctrine was more military, and the Marshall Plan, as we discussed earlier, was more economical. This allowed for the US to gain a strong footing in Europe and their political ideologies. Of course, America didn't want democracy to be upstood by the Soviet Union's communism, and as such, they wanted to make their best effort to get as many countries on board with democracy as they could. Now, of course, certain European countries would prefer to side with the Soviet Union's communism, and others would rather side with the US's democracy. This divide basically split Europe in half, and this divide was called the Iron Curtain. Many of us know that term because that's what signaled the end of the Cold War, was when the Iron Curtain was finally torn down, figuratively. To achieve the goal of stopping communism and increasing the spread of American influence and democracy, the US took several different actions, and today we'll be talking about three of those. First, we're going to be talking about the tensions in Berlin. After World War II, Germany was split into two. East Germany was controlled by the Soviet Union, and West Germany was controlled by the US and its allies. As tensions rose between the Soviet Union and the United States, the Soviets attempted to block humanitarian missions from the ground.
Hi, this is Jackie here. Just want to butt in. Everything Mr. Herman said is correct, but to clarify, Berlin was located within Soviet-controlled East Germany, and Berlin too was split so that West Berlin belonged to the United States and its allies, while East Berlin belonged to the Soviet Union. The humanitarian support from the US and its allies to West Berlin had to go through the Soviet-controlled East Germany, which is why the Soviets were able to block them.
To counter this, the US began sending these relief packages over aircraft. This is known as the Berlin Airlift. Eventually, the Soviets gave up the blockade and gave the US a moral victory. And this really began to show the United States and Great Britain's innovative spirit in solving big problems. Second, we're going to discuss the creation of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This organization was created in 1949 as an alliance between the United States, Canada, and several Western European countries, as a way to stabilize the North Atlantic region, as well as to have collective security against the Soviets. Third, let's talk about proxy wars. Now you might be wondering, Mr. Hermans, what is a proxy war? Well, a proxy war is a war fought between two smaller countries that represent the interests of two larger countries. We see this, for example, in the war in the Korean War, in which US-backed South Korea and Soviet-backed North Korea fought wars for the interests of the two larger nations. We also see this in Vietnam. China would eventually become a big player in proxy wars, but that's a video for another time. Now let's summarize the short-term and long-term impacts of US involvement. For the short-term impacts, there's definitely heightened tensions throughout the world, as two superpowers were battling through other countries, and they both had the ability to basically destroy the world. It also led to a lot of technological innovation, as each superpower tried to outdo each other, such as seen in the space race, to achieve better spaceflight capabilities for their long-range nuclear bombs. Fun. For long-term impacts, the U.S. involvement paved the way for the U.S. to become the most dominant country today, and led to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union. The proxy wars had all kinds of long-term impact throughout the world, leading to Vietnam becoming under communist rule and killing millions and destroying thousands of cities in proxy war zones. As mentioned earlier, the U.S. helped create NATO during the Cold War, and it continues to maintain stability in the North Atlantic region. And that's it for the general overview of the Cold War. In the next episode, we'll go more in depth and take a look at one of the proxy wars, the Korean War. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.